Have you ever sat in that heavy silence at a family dinner? We retell those moments honest every day, sometimes controversial. Every story is a mirror. Subscribe, join the conversation, and maybe find a little healing. I heard my grandson before I ever saw him. The cry floated down the hallway, thin and new, slipping under the crack of a closed door. For a second, everyone seemed to pause. A nurse glanced up from her tablet. A man in scrubs stopped pushing a cart. Then the sound was swallowed by the hum of the hospital again, monitors beeping, shoes squeaking on polished floors. I stood there beside the beige wall of Mile High Medical Center, fingers clamped around the strap of my canvas bag, the smell of antiseptic stinging my nose. The door did not open. Instead, my son did. Ethan stepped out of the room and pulled the door almost closed behind him, careful, like he did not want any air from inside to escape. His hair was messy, his shirt untucked, a bright blue visitor bracelet tight around his wrist. For a heartbeat, my chest lifted. He looked like he was 12 again and had just woken up from a bad dream. Then he did not look at me. His eyes found a spot somewhere over my shoulder on the window or the exit sign, anywhere but my face. "Hey, honey." My voice came out too soft. I cleared my throat and tried again. "How is she?" "How is the baby?" He shifted his weight. One of the ceiling lights flickered. A nurse pushed past us with a tray, pretending not to hear. "Mom," Ethan said barely above a whisper. "Jenna only wants family in there." The word hit in a strange way, like he had mispronounced it. I blinked. "We are family." He shut his eyes for a second. When he opened them, he finally looked at me, but it was the quick glance you give a stranger who is in your way. "She means her family," he said. "Her parents, her sister, people she is comfortable with right now." My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag until the canvas cut into my palm. "Ethan, I rode 12 hours to get here." "I know." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I know, okay. It is just not a good time to start anything. She never really liked having you around." Please do not push it. There it was. No monitor beeped loud enough to cover that sentence. "She never really liked having you around." Someone's pager went off down the hall, shrill and insistent. The overhead speaker called a code in a calm voice. The air felt suddenly thinner. "Oh," I said. It was the only thing I could make my mouth form. He shifted again, hands going into his pockets like a boy caught doing something wrong. "It is just better this way," he mumbled, "for her. She has been through a lot." The baby cried again inside the room. The sound burrowed into my ribs. I nodded once because my mother had raised me to pick dignity over begging. My tongue felt too big in my mouth. If I opened it any further, I was not sure what would fall out. "Okay," I said, "if that is what you want." "It is what she needs," he corrected fast. Then softer, "I will come find you later, all right." He did not wait for an answer. He slipped back into the room, pulled the door shut behind him, and I was alone again with the buzzing lights in the empty hallway. I stood there until my knees hurt. Then I turned away from the door and started walking. The night before the bus had left St. Louis just after sunset. I took my usual seat near the back, where the heater worked only half the time, and the bathroom door clicked every time we hit a bump. The air smelled like Old Fry's diesel and Too Many Strangers' perfume. Outside, the arch of my city curved against a purple sky as we pulled onto the highway. I had spent the week getting ready for that ride. I pulled my good slacks from the back of the closet, pressed my nicest blouse with the little blue flowers on the collar, and folded everything in careful squares in my worn canvas bag. I tucked in a small stuffed lion with one eye missing just in case I got to hand something to the baby. I slid my wallet into the front pocket along with a photograph of Ethan at 18 cap, crooked on his head, smile so wide it made his eyes disappear, and from the dish beside the sink I took my old blue mug. The mug had a chipped rim and a faded ring of paint near the bottom that used to be sunflowers. It had been my mother's, then mine. It was the mug I was drinking from the morning Ethan was born. It was the mug I set down the day Daniel never came home. I did not actually bring it on the bus. That would have been silly. But I held it up before I left the house, running my thumb over the broken edge like it was a worry stone, then put it back in its spot on the counter. Watch the house, I told it. Old women talk to objects when there is no one else to listen. On the bus, I sat with my coat folded on my lap and watched Missouri slide past in smears of light. Small towns, gas stations, a rest stop with a broken ice machine, then long stretches of nothing but the dark line of woods. I pictured what would happen when I reached Denver. Ethan would be waiting at the station with that lopsided grin he got from his father. He would hug me hard the way he did every time he came home for Christmas. In the hospital, he would walk me into the room and say, "She is here. This is my mom." Jenna would be pale and tired, but kind. She would scoot over and say, "Come sit. Do you want to hold him?" I could almost feel the weight of my grandson in my arms. I imagined breathing in the warm, milky smell of the top of his head, imagined his tiny fingers curling around one of mine. I imagined Ethan watching us with his eyes full the way Daniel had watched me the first time I held Ethan. A bridge, I thought. That is what a child is, a new bridge between what was and what will be. When Ethan was born, the world had felt small and safe, contained within the walls of a hospital room in St. Louis. It had been summer then, another kind of heat. St. Mary's smelled like weak coffee and baby powder. I had been 27 that age, when you think tired is something that can be fixed with a nap. Daniel sat in the corner chair, grease still under his fingernails from the garage, twisting his wedding ring around and around his finger. "It is fine," I told him between contractions. "Babies take their time." He did not look convinced. He was not a man who liked not knowing how things worked. When they finally placed Ethan on my chest, he was red and wrinkled and louder than I thought tiny lungs could be. His hands flew and opened and closed like he was already trying to grab onto the world. I remember thinking, "I know you," just like that. After a single breath, like some part of me had been waiting for him before I even knew. Later at home, Ethan would sit on the linoleum floor with a box of crayons drawing bridges. "Why bridges?" Daniel asked, once leaning in the kitchen doorway, watching his son connect two chairs with a line of paper taped between them. "So things don't fall," Ethan answered, serious as a little professor. Daniel laughed and ruffled his hair. "You hear that, Grace? We got ourselves a future engineer." I stood at the sink with my sleeves rolled up, my mother's blue mug beside me, the faucet running. I turned just enough to see the two of them in the reflection of the window, the boy and his father, surrounded by his paper structures. "Let him build whatever he wants," I said, "as long as he builds it on solid ground." The ground shifted the year Ethan turned 15. It was a Tuesday. Tuesdays were slow at the garage. Daniel had kissed my forehead that morning, grabbed his thermos, and left with his usual "back for dinner." I spent the day folding laundry and reminding Ethan about his algebra homework. The phone rang at 3:17. I know because I stared at the red digital clock on the stove while I listened. Mrs. Harper from the shop voice too tight. Sirens in the distance, words tumbling over each other, "Heart attack, ambulance, you need to come now." At the hospital, everything moved fast, and then not at all. The doctor's mouth was moving, saying things like "massive" and "did not suffer," and Ethan was standing beside me with his backpack still on, looking very much like a boy, and not at all like the almost man he liked to pretend to be. I found my blue mug later that night still on the kitchen table where Daniel had left it before work. A ring of coffee had dried at the bottom, a thin, dark crescent. I picked it up and the handle shook in my hand. "I got you," I whispered to the empty room to the boy, down the hall sobbing into his pillow. "Whatever it takes, I got you." Whatever it took turned out to be 2 jobs and a constant ache between my shoulder blades. I cleaned dental offices at dawn, pushed a rolling cart of supplies down hallways that smelled like mint and bleach. In the afternoons, I sat behind a glass window at a clinic reception desk, smiled through insurance questions and sore feet. At night, I sat at our wobbly kitchen table with Ethan, a stack of bills on one side and his math notebook on the other. He grew taller. My hands grew rougher. The blue mug lost a little more of its color with every wash. University of Colorado has one of the best civil engineering programs, he told me one evening, pointing at his laptop screen. The glow lit his sharp cheekbones, the new angles of his face. And Denver is booming right now. Infrastructure, new developments, real projects. "Denver is far," I said. My fork hovered above my plate. "It is 1 bus ride away," he said. "You always said I should not be afraid to cross bridges." I had. I just never pictured the bridge going that direction. He got in, of course. Scholarships covered a good chunk. The rest came from the money left after I sold the garage and the savings I had scraped together from early mornings and late nights. On the day he left St. Louis for Denver, the Greyhound station smelled like exhaust and cinnamon rolls. The ceiling fans barely stirred the hot air. People lined up with suitcases, babies, plastic bags full of their lives. Ethan's whole world fit into one worn duffel and a backpack. He bounced on his heels, nervous and eager. "You will call," I said, more statement than question. "Every night at 9, he promised. Until you get sick of me." I did not say you are my only child. I did not say the house already felt empty with just his room packed up. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out a postcard I had bought from a spinning rack at the gas station. A photograph of a steel bridge over a river in Colorado mountains in the background. "For your fridge," I told him. "So you do not forget what you came out there to do." He tucked it carefully into his backpack. When his bus was called, he hugged me quick but tight. I held on a heartbeat longer, then let go. Through the smudged bus window, I watched his face recede until it was just a blur of pale against the dark seats, until even that disappeared behind the reflection of my own. The next time I saw him in person was in a hospital hallway in Denver, with my grandson crying on the other side of a door I was not allowed to open. I walked past the closed door, past the nurse's station, past the chairs full of other people's joy. All the way down the corridor, the baby's first cry followed me, small and fierce, tethered to something inside my chest I could not quite name. I reached the elevator and pressed the button with a hand that would not stop shaking. The elevator doors slid shut in front of me, cutting off the sound of the baby's cry. As the car started to move, my reflection shimmered on the metal pail and warped my hand, still pressed against the lit button. When my mind cannot bear where I am, it slips backward. It went first to the sound of Ethan's voice on better nights, when Denver was still new and I still knew where I stood. At the beginning, he called every evening at 9. My phone would light up on the kitchen counter, buzzing against the laminate, and I would wipe my hands on a dish towel and answer on the first ring. The house felt less empty for that 1 hour. "It is snowing again," he told me one night, laughing. "Big fat flakes like movie snow. You would hate it." "You wearing a hat?" I asked. He scoffed. "I am not 8, Mom." I pictured him anyway. Ears, red cheeks, chapped shoulders hunched against wind that climbed down from the Rockies. On my end, the air that drifted through the cracked kitchen window from the alley was damp and mild. St. Louis winters were lazy compared to Colorado. He talked about classes and labs, about professors with accents, about how the altitude made climbing stairs feel like he was suddenly out of shape. "You still eating?" I would say. "Not just coffee and vending machines." "I am fine," he always answered, the same half-amused tone. "Our dorm has a cereal bar. I am living the dream." Sometimes he asked about my day. I told him small things. The dentist whose dog had died and would not stop talking about it while I scrubbed his floors. The little boy at the clinic who gave me a sticker that said, "You are brave," because he did not cry during his shots. The cardinal who landed on the fire escape outside the kitchen. They were not big stories, but they made a bridge between my world and his. The calls stayed steady until he graduated and took the job with a construction firm in downtown Denver. They threw him into projects right away. He sounded taller on the phone, his sentences packed with terms I had never heard before. Structural analysis, he would say. Load capacity. Expansion joints. "It still comes down to making sure things do not fall," I told him. He laughed. "Exactly." The shift happened slowly enough that if you looked at any one day, you might not notice. First, there was a missed call. "Sorry, long meeting," his text read an hour later. "Talk tomorrow." "Tomorrow," he called. We pretended it was nothing. Then it was 2 days without a call. Then 3. "Now that you are a big engineer, you forgot how to dial a phone," I joked once, forcing lightness into my voice. "I'm just busy, Mom," he said. "Work is insane." I nodded at the empty kitchen as if he could see me. "Of course. I get it. They are lucky to have you." A week went by. 10 days. I tried not to watch the clock at 9. I told myself grown sons have lives. I tried to wait for him to call instead of crowding his days with my voice. The first time 18 days passed without his name lighting up my screen, I took to carrying the phone in the pocket of my apron at work, the vibration against my hip a constant ghost. When he finally did call, the connection crackled. I was sitting at the table with my blue mug in front of me, the coffee already gone cold. "Hey," he said, "how is it going?" "Good." I lied. "You swamped. We are on this deadline. I am barely home. You could still call your mother while you walk to the parking lot." I said, trying to keep it teasing. It came out tight instead. There was a pause. "I'm calling now, right?" "Right," I said quickly. "I do not mean to nag. I just miss you, that is all." "I miss you too," he said, but it sounded like a line he knew he was supposed to deliver, not something rising up from his chest. We went on like that for a while, a few calls scattered through long stretches of silence. Then he mentioned her. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I had burned the grilled cheese for my own dinner while we were talking and had to scrape the black layer into the trash. "Oh, by the way," he said, almost casual. "I met someone." The knife stopped in my hand. "Someone how?" He chuckled. "Someone good." "Her name is Jenna. She is an architect at the firm. Architect. The word sounded delicate like glass. That is wonderful, honey, I said. I meant it. Tell me about her. She is smart, really sharp. She did her master's at Berkeley. She is into sustainable design and urban parks and all that. Her family is from Cherry Ridge. I did not know Cherry Ridge, so he added little town outside the city, big houses, good schools. The picture sharpened a little. Money. Different kind of dinner table conversations. Probably no plates from the dollar store in those kitchens. How long have you been seeing her? I asked. A couple months. And he was telling me now. That is serious, I said. Have you taken her to that taco place you like? I have taken her everywhere, he said, and I heard the smile in his voice. She is kind of amazing. I smiled too, even though there was that familiar pinch under my ribs. I am happy for you. He exhaled like he had been waiting to hear those words. Thanks, Mom. I would love to meet her someday, I added. Yeah, he said, at some point. We will figure it out. At some point turned into a season. When he did call, I heard her name more than my own. Jenna and I tried this new sushi place. Jenna found this hiking trail with the best view. Jenna said something really interesting about public spaces. I collected these pieces trying to knit them into a person. I pictured long hair maybe, and long fingers that knew how to hold a pencil over drafting paper, a neat apartment with plants living instead of plastic ones. Put her on the phone, I said one evening. I had just finished my shift at the clinic reception desk, the fluorescent lights making my eyes ache. What? Let me say hello, I said. Just for a minute. There was a muffled sound like his hand over the receiver. She is in the shower, he said after a second. Next time. Next time did not come for a long while. The first picture I saw of Jenna was not in a frame. It was in an email. Subject line, save the date. I clicked it open at the old desktop in my living room, the screen humming faintly. The invitation slid onto the monitor, cream and gold elegant fonts, their names intertwined. Ethan Walker and Jenna Reyes request the honor of your presence at the celebration of their marriage. Behind the text was a photograph of the two of them. They stood on a rooftop somewhere, Denver skyline behind them, the mountains a darker shadow farther back. Ethan was in a navy jacket I had never seen before. He was smiling fully, that same grin from his graduation picture, but there was a new ease in his shoulders. Jenna leaned into him. She had dark hair swept over one shoulder, simple gold hoops in her ears, a dress that looked like it had not come off a sale rack. They looked like they were already part of the same world. There was no little note at the bottom. No, cannot wait to see you, Mom. Just the same formal line everyone else must have received. I waited a day before I called. I got the invitation, I said as I stood at the kitchen window watching a delivery truck back into the alley. Looks good, right? Ethan said. He sounded out of breath as if he was walking somewhere. It is very pretty, I said. Do you need help with anything? Folding programs, addressing envelopes, anything like that. Jenna's mom is handling that stuff, he said. She knows vendors and all that. It is kind of her world. I see. Besides, it is mostly online now. You know, RSVPs and gift registries. I did not know, not really, but I said, of course. There was a small silence. I could hear traffic on his side, a horn in the distance. You are coming, right? He added. Of course, I am coming, I said. You think I would miss my only son's wedding? Okay. Good. He sounded relieved in a way that stung. The weekend of the wedding, I woke up before dawn in St. Louis, dressed in the navy dress I had bought off a clearance rack, after trying on 5 that made me feel like I was wearing someone else's life. I smoothed the fabric over my hips a third time in the bus station bathroom before stepping onto the Greyhound. The ride to Denver felt longer than usual. Every time we stopped, someone else got on, wearing something nicer than the last person. A man in a suit with a garment bag, a woman with heels held carefully in her hand. I looked down at my own shoes, polished but scuffed at the toes. The ceremony was in a garden behind a renovated barn just outside the city. Strings of lights crisscrossed overhead lit, even though the sun had not yet dipped. White chairs lined a brick path. Servers in black shirts carried trays of champagne. I found my name on a little white card on the third row. The first row was labeled Reyes family. Jenna's parents, her younger sister, a couple of older people who looked like grandparents, all in coordinated shades of soft blue and gray. The second row had more Reyes's aunts and uncles' cousins. The third row was a mixture. A man I recognized from a picture as Ethan's boss, a couple of Jenna's friends, me. I sat down, smoothing my skirt again, pressing my bag under the chair with the side of my shoe. For a moment, I wondered if there had been a mistake with the cards, if my name was supposed to be closer. Then I told myself it did not matter. What mattered was that he was getting married. I saw Jenna before she saw me. She stood near the back of the garden with a cluster of women, a champagne flute in one hand, even though the ceremony had not started. Her dress was simple, not big or fluffy, a clean white column that made her look taller. Someone said something and the little circle of women burst into laughter, heads tipped back. I took a breath and walked toward her. Up close, I could see the tiny lines at the corners of her mouth, like she had learned to smile for photos more than for herself. Her eyes were a dark brown that gave away nothing. "You must be Jenna," I said, holding my bag strap with both hands. She turned and her gaze ran over me quickly. Dress shoes, hair. I felt it land on each thing and move away. "Hi," she said. Her smile was polite. "You are Ethan's mom." "Yes, Grace." I stepped forward and offered a small hug. She did not back away, but her arms came up slow, a brief tap on my shoulders, then gone. "It is so nice to finally meet you," I said. "Yeah," she answered. "We are so glad you could make it." Her voice was smooth, no warmth, but no open edge either, just neutral in a way that somehow felt worse. Up close, I saw the faint shimmer of highlighter on her cheekbones, the expensive kind that looks like you are glowing from within. A thin gold bracelet circled her wrist. I smelled vanilla and something floral on her skin. "You look beautiful," I said. "Thank you." She glanced over my shoulder at something. "I have to go check on the florist." "Enjoy the ceremony." "Okay." She slid away before I could say anything else, disappearing back into the cluster of her people. The ceremony itself was lovely. White petals scattered down the aisle, a singer with a guitar vows, written in their own words. Ethan's voice shook when he promised things to Jenna. Mine did the same when I whispered along in my head, adding silent words he would never hear. At the reception, I ended up at a round table near the edge of the dance floor with 3 of Jenna's cousins and a coworker of Ethan's. I met a lot of people, but no one asked many questions about me that went past. "So you are from Missouri?" When the photographer called for family photos, I stood up, automatically smoothing my hair. "Reyes family first," he shouted, waving a hand. I watched them cluster under the arbor, Jenna in the middle, parents on either side, sister tucked in, grandparents flanking, cousins wrapping around. Then friends of the bride and groom was called, then co-workers. At some point, Ethan spotted me and beckoned me forward. "Get one with Mom," he told the photographer. I stepped in next to him, hands folded in front of me. The photographer framed us quickly. Ethan had his arm around my shoulder, warm and solid. For a second, I let myself lean in. Then it was over. The bus back to St. Louis after the wedding felt the same as always. Same thin seat cushions, same rattling windows. Only the shape of the ache in my chest had changed. Calls after that came even less often. When they did, there was always background noise. A television, music, laughter that was not mine. "Sorry, can we make this quick?" he would say. "We are on our way out." "Ought to call your mother when you are on your way back too." I would answer lighter than I felt. Months passed before he told me Jenna was pregnant. It was a Thursday. I had just sat down with my blue mug, fresh coffee steaming my feet, throbbing from a long shift. "We have news," he said, and I could tell by his tone before he said the words. "Jenna is pregnant." I gripped the mug with both hands. "Pregnant," I repeated so the word could land somewhere solid. "You are having a baby." "We are having a baby," he said, and this time his voice was full in the way it had been when he was a boy, showing me a bridge made of couch cushions. "You are going to be a grandma." The room around me blurred. "I'm so happy for you," I whispered. "For you both." Everything after that went through a filter of that one fact. When I stocked shelves at the clinic, I thought about tiny hands. When I scrubbed chewing gum from under a waiting room chair, I pictured little shoes tapping on those floors. I knit in the evenings, something I had not done in years, my fingers clumsy at first, Then sure, a small blanket growing row by row across my lap. I mailed them the blanket folded tight in a cardboard box, along with a stuffed lion newer twin to the old one I had held onto from Ethan's childhood. I tucked in a card. To my first grandbaby, your Grandma Grace cannot wait to meet you. 2 weeks later, I got a text from Ethan. Got the package. Blanket is nice, thanks, Mom. That was it. No picture. No mention of whether Jenna liked it. No proof the lion had found a shelf. I tried Jenna directly. I had her number now thanks to the shower invitation I did not receive but that Ethan forwarded details from. I typed and erased the message 3 times before settling on something plain. Hi, Jenna, this is Grace. I hope you're feeling okay. I am so excited for you both and for the baby. The bubbles appeared for a moment, that little sign that she was typing. They disappeared. No response came. I told myself she was tired, nauseous, overwhelmed with work and doctor's appointments. I told myself a lot of things. As the due date crept closer, I called Ethan more often. You tell me when she goes into labor, I said. I can get on a bus the same day. I will be there. He hesitated. Thing is, Jenna is really anxious about the whole process, he said. Crowds stress her out. I am not a crowd, I said. I know, but you know what I mean. Her mom is going to be there. She's used to that. So she is comfortable with her mother, I said, and not with me. He was silent for a moment. It is not personal, Mom. It is just how it is. You can come after, when things settle. She's having my grandchild, I said. I want to be there to at least sit in the waiting room. Can we talk about this later? His voice tightened. There is a lot going on. Later ended up being 3 days before her scheduled induction. He called in the middle of the afternoon when I was at my small kitchen table sorting coupons. Look, he said, Jenna and I talked. If it means that much to you, you can come. Just promise me you will not make it a big thing. She needs things calm. I stared at the phone. I do not know how to be anything but your mother, I said. Just do not take it personally if she wants space, he answered. Please, Mom, do this for me, for you, I said. Okay. I spent the last of my savings on the ticket, the one that brought me to Denver the night before my grandson was born. I came with hope packed in beside my clothes with the years of bridges and bus rides humming under my skin. I rode the elevator down from the maternity floor after Ethan shut that door in my face, slow enough to feel every level. On the ground floor, the doors opened into a lobby that smelled like stale coffee and floor wax. I walked past families clustered around vending machines, people asleep in chairs with jackets over their faces. Outside, the air slapped me. Denver in February is not kind to people with thin coats. My breath came out in uneven clouds. I did not call a cab right away. I stood on the sidewalk under the harsh hospital spotlight and watched the glass doors open and close, spilling out strangers into the cold. Inside, somewhere above my head, my grandson was taking his first breaths. I finally flagged down a cab and gave the driver the address of the cheapest motel I had found on the internet before leaving home. The room had a carpet the color of old moss and a bedspread printed with faded flowers. The heater rattled. Through the thin wall, I could hear a television and someone laughing at a show I could not make out. I sat on the edge of the bed and did not take my coat off for a long time. When the tears came, they came without sound. My shoulders shook, my hands pressed to my face, but I kept my voice in. Old habit from nights when Ethan was young and I cried only after he had fallen asleep, not wanting him to hear. I cried for the 12-hour ride, for the door in my face, for the sentence, "She never really liked having you around." I cried for every time I had lifted a mop at dawn so that he could one day lift blueprints in a meeting room. Eventually, I lay back on the bed without bothering to turn off the light. The ceiling had a brown water stain over the light fixture shaped almost like a map. I stared at it until my eyes burned. In the morning, I showered longer than I needed to, letting the cheap soap and hot water scrub the hospital smell from my skin. I put on the same clothes as the day before, smoothing wrinkles as best I could. I brushed my hair, added a little lipstick. Habit. I had been raised to show up looking like I belonged, even when I felt invisible. Ethan texted an address. Pediatric checkup at 10, he wrote. We will meet you in the waiting room. I checked out of the motel and rode another cab through a city I did not know, past people holding coffee cups and phones and lives that made sense to them. The pediatric office was in a low brick building with a bright mural of animals on the side. Inside, the waiting room was painted with balloons and clouds. A TV in the corner played a cartoon about trains on mute. The air smelled like hand sanitizer and crayons. They were already there when I walked in. Jenna sat in a plastic chair against the wall, her hair pulled back in a neat braid, a soft blanket draped over something in her arms. Ethan stood beside her, scrolling on his phone. For a second, I just watched them. It could have been a picture from a brochure. Young parents, healthy baby, good lighting. Then I made myself move. "Hi," I said. Ethan looked up. Relief flickered across his face, then was gone. "Mom, you made it." "Of course I did," I said. "How are you?" "Fine," he said quickly. "Just tired." I turned to Jenna. She had that same practiced smile I remembered from the wedding, only looser at the edges. The blanket in her arm shifted, and I saw the corner of a tiny hat. "Hi, Jenna," I said. "How are you feeling?" "Okay," she said. "Healing." Her hands adjusted the blanket, tucking the baby closer. His face was still hidden. "Can I?" I wet my lips. "Can I see him?" She tightened the fabric almost imperceptibly. "He just fell asleep," she said. "If I move him now, he gets fussy." "I can wait," I said. I sat down in the chair beside them, clutching my bag in my lap. We waited together. Ethan checked his phone. Jenna stared at a poster about vaccinations. I listened to the receptionist answer calls in a cheerful voice. After a while, the baby made a little sound under the blanket, a quick hiccup of a noise. "He is waking up," I said without thinking, leaning in. "He's probably hungry," Jenna said. She stood up. "I will go nurse him before they call us." She walked away down the hall to the mother's room, the blanket still high around her. The baby went with her. I watched them until the door closed. I sat alone next to Ethan. "You got in okay?" he asked. "I managed," I said. "Good," he answered. "That motel, all right." "It had a bed," I said, "and a door that locked." He winced. "Mom." "You asked," I answered. He looked down at his shoes. "I appreciate you coming." "Really?" I nodded. They called Leo's name while Jenna was still gone, but the nurse just moved on to the next kid and circled back 15 minutes later. Ethan and Jenna went into the exam room together when she returned the baby's head still covered, and I stayed in the waiting room alone with the painted balloons and the silent cartoon. When they finally emerged, the baby was fussing a little cry that cut through the sound of the fish tank filter. "We have to head home," Ethan said. "He has had a long morning." "I can ride with you," I said. "There is a bus that leaves for St. Louis this afternoon, but I have some time." Jenna and Ethan exchanged a quick look. "My parents are coming over later," Jenna said. "The apartment is going to be kind of chaotic." "I do not mind chaotic," I said. "I raised Ethan, remember?" She gave a small, tight smile. "It is really better if it is just us today." Ethan touched my arm lightly. "Mom, you understand, right? It has been a lot." What I understood and what I said were two different things. "I will go to the station then," I said. "We can drop you," he said quickly. The cab ride was short. Jenna sat in the back seat with Leo in his car seat, her hand resting on his chest through the blanket. Ethan sat up front. Halfway there, Leo's crying softened to little sniffs. Jenna sighed. "Here," she said, almost grudging, like someone offering a favor they were not sure they wanted to give. "Do you want to hold him for a minute?" She unbuckled him and lifted him out, keeping the blanket around him. For the first time, I saw his face. He was smaller than I had pictured, cheeks flushed, eyes closed in a tired squint. His hair was only a dark fuzz damp at the temples. His fist was pressed against his mouth. I took him in my arms, and the world narrowed to the weight against my chest. "Hi," I whispered. "Hi, Leo." His scent filled my head warm and sour and clean. My hand trembled as I traced the back of one tiny knuckle with my thumb. He sighed a little shudder of breath, and one of his fingers uncurled, brushing my collar. 5 minutes, maybe less. The driver called out that we were there, the big block letters of the bus station sliding into view. "I should take him," Jenna said. I held on 1 second longer, memorizing the heaviness of him, the exact angle of his nose, the shape of his mouth. Then I let go. Ethan got out with me, lifted my bag from the trunk, and set it at my feet on the sidewalk. The February wind found its way through my coat again. "Thank you for coming, Mom," he said, pulling me briefly into a hug. "It was the quick kind you give when your mind is on someplace else." "I'm glad I got to see him," I said. "I will call you soon," he said. "Whenever you can," I answered. He smiled, relieved that I had not asked for more. "Thanks for understanding," he said. I did not answer. He went back to the cab. Through the window, I saw Jenna adjusting the blanket around Leo, already turned away. The cab pulled out into traffic. I watched it until the taillights were just 2 red dots among many. Inside the station, the air smelled like coffee and fried food. I bought a ticket home and sat on a hard plastic chair near the window. Out of habit, I took out my phone. There was a new post from Jenna. A picture of her and Ethan at the cafe near the pediatric office, each with one arm reaching toward the middle, where Leo lay in his carrier, his hat pulled low. They were both smiling, heads leaning close. Caption: "Perfect morning with my boys." I looked at the 3 of them framed neatly together, bright and warm and complete. I had been sitting at the table beside them when that picture was taken. You could not tell from the square. Something inside my chest gave a soft, precise tear, like paper being pulled slowly in two. I turned off my phone and slipped it back into my bag. The bus to St. Louis rolled up outside, brakes hissing, doors opening with a tired sigh. The bus ride back to St. Louis felt longer than any I had taken before, even though the miles were the same. At night, the windows turned into mirrors. Every time I glanced sideways, I saw my own face looking back pale in the weak overhead light, framed by the reflection of strangers sleeping with their mouths open. Outside was only dark. Inside was a different kind of dark. I held my bag on my lap the whole way. My fingers kept finding the soft spot on the strap where the fabric had thinned from years of being gripped too hard. Once, when the driver hit a bump, the bag shifted and something crinkled. I reached in and pulled out the bus ticket from the ride out to Denver, the ink still fresh, the edges already curling. All that way for 5 minutes. I folded the ticket in half, then in half again, until it was a small square pressed between my thumb and forefinger. I did not throw it away. I slipped it back into the inner pocket with the others. We pulled into St. Louis just as the sky started to turn a lighter shade of black. The station was quiet, only a few people waiting, hunched in their coats. I stepped out into the air that smelled like wet pavement and river. At home, the house was exactly as I had left it. The sink was empty because I had made sure to wash everything before I left. The couch cushions still had the sag in the middle where I usually sat. The postcard of the Colorado Bridge was still stuck to the refrigerator door with a magnet shaped like a tomato corners curling. On the counter, where I always kept it, sat my blue mug. I hung my coat on the back of a chair, dropped my bag beside it, and went straight to the cupboard. The motions were automatic. Mug, coffee grounds, water filter. The smell rose and filled the small kitchen, familiar and bitter. I poured the coffee and wrapped both hands around the mug, warming my fingers. The chipped rim pressed against my lower lip when I took the first sip. For a moment, with the taste on my tongue and the early morning gray pressing at the window, I could pretend that nothing had changed. That my son still called every night. That his wife liked me. That my grandson would be passed to me at the first chance, not as an afterthought. The phone rang on the third sip. I almost smiled, thinking of Ethan on his way home from the hospital, calling to say he was sorry about yesterday, to ask me to come back, to bring me into the room this time. The caller ID said Denver, Colorado, but the number was different from his. I put the mug down and picked up the receiver. "Hello? Miss Walker." The voice was crisp, nasal, practiced. "Yes, this is the billing department at Mile High Medical Center. We are calling regarding an outstanding balance on the account for Jenna Reyes." The mug's handle slipped slightly under my fingers. Coffee sloshed against the sides. "I think you have the wrong number," I said. "Our records list you as the guarantor," the voice went on. "The insurance processed, but there is a remaining balance of $2,537.14. The charges are for a private maternity room and additional medications not covered by the plan. Private room. Extra medications, little comforts I had not shared, could not afford for myself. There must be some mistake," I said slowly. "Your son Ethan Walker provided this number as the financial responsible party," the woman said. Papers shuffled on her end. "We have attempted to reach him, but he indicated that any billing questions should go to you." I stared at the blue mug on the counter. The coffee had stopped steaming. A tiny chip of porcelain near the rim caught the light like a white crescent moon. When did he say that? I asked. Her voice stayed neutral. At the time of admission. At the time of admission. While I was on a bus rolling through Kansas with my forehead against the glass thinking I was coming to meet my grandson, Ethan was signing my name on a line that had nothing to do with the bassinet. My pulse slowed. Not the panicked rush I might have expected. Something heavier. A kind of settling. If we do not receive payment within 30 days, the woman continued, the account may be referred to collections, which could affect your credit. We can set up a payment plan if that is easier. I could hear typing in the background, the tap of keys, the muted ring of another phone at another desk. The hospital smell came back in a rush, layered under the burnt coffee of my own kitchen. Miss Walker, she prompted. I took a breath, let it out, and heard my voice from far away when I spoke. I'm sorry, I said. There is an error in your records. Ma'am. I do not have any family in Denver. I said the words precise, each one laid down like a brick. You should contact whoever belongs on that account. It is not me. There was a pause on her end. According to our file, Ms. Ray's partner listed you as his mother. Ethan Walker. I do not have a son in Denver, I said. I set the mug down. My hand did not shake. Please correct your records, I added. Good day. I hung up before she could answer. The kitchen was suddenly very quiet. Too quiet. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator motor, the tick of the wall clock above the doorway. My own breath. I picked up the mug again. The coffee was lukewarm now, the bitter edge sharper. I drank it anyway. Then my cell phone started. It vibrated across the table, the screen lighting up with a number I knew by heart. Ethan. For a moment, my hand moved toward it on its own. Muscle memory. Years of answering on the first ring. The phone buzzed itself to voicemail, stopped, started again. I watched it dance on the table. When the buzzing finally stopped, the silence rang. I picked it up and saw 3 missed calls and a new text. Mom, the hospital just called me. They said you refused to pay. What is going on? A minute later, another. This is serious. Can you please call me back? I put the phone down face down and walked to the sink. The old pipes clanked as I turned on the water. I rinsed the mug, wiped it with a dish towel, and set it upside down to dry. By the time I turned the faucet off, the phone had lit up again, voicemail icon this time. I pressed it to my ear. Mom, what are you doing? His voice poured into my kitchen, the familiar tone threaded now with an edge. You told them you do not have family here. What is that supposed to mean? They are saying you will not pay. We need that money. Jenna is freaking out. Call me. I let it play twice, then hit delete. The texts kept coming throughout the day. Mom, answer your phone. They are going to send us to collections. Do you understand how bad that is for us right now? Mom, this is not funny. I cannot believe you are doing this when we just had a baby. At some point, they changed shape. So you were just pretending all those years, huh? You like to use money to control people. Val was right about you. You always make everything about yourself. I read each one as it came. Then I set the phone down and went about my tasks. I scrubbed the bathroom sink. I swept the living room floor. I took a bag of trash out to the alley. Around 4, the phone rang again, another voicemail. His voice had moved from angry to something tighter. Mom, please. The hospital says if it goes to collections, it can screw up our credit for years. We have the baby. We cannot deal with this on top of everything. You know I would do it for you. Dad always said family takes care of each other. Just call me back. The mention of his father made something twist. I sat down at the table, the phone in front of me, and looked at the refrigerator. The postcard of the Colorado Bridge had slipped a little under its magnet, tilted at a slight angle. The river under it was a dull gray in the harsh kitchen light. I thought of Daniel's hands on a steering wheel of his blue mug left on the table that last morning. I thought of the nights I had come home from cleaning other people's offices, so tired I could barely take my shoes off, and still sat with Ethan over his homework so he would not feel alone. I thought of the sound of my grandson's cry on the other side of a door. Another text came in while I was sitting there. If you are punishing me, fine. But you are punishing Leo, too. I hope you realize that. I realized a lot of things that day, sitting in that little kitchen in St. Louis, with my old mug turned upside down and my phone pulsing like a small trapped animal. That night, I slept badly, lines of numbers floating behind my eyes. $2,537.14, 12 hours on a bus, 5 minutes in a cab with a baby in my arms. In the morning, there was an email. Subject, we need to talk. I opened it on the desktop computer, the same one where I had read the wedding invitation. Mom, I do not understand what is happening with you. The hospital called Jenna directly yesterday. She was humiliated. They told her you denied being our family. Who does that? We just had a baby. We are exhausted. We are trying to figure out how to be parents. The last thing we need is drama from you. I have always supported you when you needed me. When Dad died, I was there. I never complained about anything you asked of me. Now that I am asking for help, this is how you respond. You know we do not have that kind of money right now. You know things are tight. You could make this so much easier, but instead you are choosing to make some kind of point. Val says this is exactly what she has been worried about, that you would use money to guilt us or control us. I did not want to believe her, but you are proving her right. This is not about you. It is about Leo. If the hospital sends us to collections, it affects him his future. If you do not want to help, at least have the courage to say it. I hope you reconsider. Ethan. I rested my hand on the mouse without clicking anything for a long time. He had always been good with math. Percentages, equations, the clean logic of it. Somewhere along the way, he had started to do his emotional accounting in the same way. Inputs and outputs, debits and credits, support measured and bills paid, and crises managed. I pushed the chair back and stood my joints protesting. At the counter, I flipped the blue mug upright again and filled it with water instead of coffee. My throat was too dry for caffeine. I took a sip, set the mug down, and went back to the computer. My fingers hovered above the keys, then settled. Ethan, I've read your message several times. You say you were there when your father died. You were a 15-year-old boy who lost his dad in one afternoon. You were there, but you did not sell the garage. You did not fill out stacks of paperwork with people in suits who only cared about signatures. You did not wake up at 4:30 to clean offices and then smile at strangers through a glass window until 8 at night. That was me. I never once called that support. I called it love. You say I'm making drama. I sat in a motel room with thin walls and cried into a pillow so you would not have to hear me through the phone. I rode a bus for 12 hours to be told at the hospital door that your wife did not like having me around. I waited in a pediatric waiting room while you and Jenna went in with Leo. I sat at a cafe table while the two of you leaned over your son for a picture that did not include me. You say this is not about me. In a way, you are right. It is about how you have chosen to see me. I am your mother when you need a name on a line, when a college deposit is due, when there is a hospital bill you cannot pay. I am not your mother when you introduce your wife to people, or when your son is born, or when the pictures are taken. You have every right to make those choices. You are an adult. You have your own family. You get to decide who sits in your front row. I have the right to make choices too. I will not pay for a private room and extra medications in a city where I am not allowed to exist except as a bank account. I will not sign on as the responsible party for a family that does not call me until there is a bill. You and Jenna are capable people. You will find a way to handle this without my money. People do that every day. If you ever want a relationship where I am more than an emergency contact, where I am treated as a person and not a resource, I am here. Until then, I hope you and your family stay well. Mom. I read the email twice. I deleted one sentence that sounded too sharp and changed another that sounded too soft. Then I clicked send. There was no big rush of relief, just a quiet, the kind you hear in a room when the air conditioner shuts off and you realize how loud it had been. His reply came sooner than I expected. 3 lines. You really are who she said you were. Goodbye. I stared at the word goodbye until it blurred. I did not answer. Instead, I walked to the refrigerator and reached for the magnet holding up the Colorado Bridge postcard. The magnet was one of those you get free from a pizza place, corners chipped. I eased it off, held the postcard in my hand. The bridge spanned the river in the picture metal arcs against a clear blue sky. Impressive, solid, designed to hold weight. I turned the card over. On the back, in Ethan's familiar handwriting, were the words he had written the day he moved. Thought you might like to see what I get to build someday. I stood there in my small kitchen in St. Louis, the hum of the refrigerator in my ears, the blue mug on the counter, the postcard in my fingers, and felt the quiet settle around me like a new kind of air. The phone lit up once more on the table. I did not pick it up. Spring came to St. Louis quietly. I almost missed it. One day, the trees on my block were sticks against a gray sky. The next, there were pale green buds along the branches, small as fingernails. The alley smelled less like cold metal and more like damp earth. Kids started riding bikes past my window again after school. Inside my house, the season did not change as fast. After Ethan's last email, the one that ended with goodbye, there were no more calls from Denver. My phone still lit up, but only with wrong numbers, appointment reminders, and Carol. Carol worked the early shift at the clinic with me. She had hair the color of steel wool and a laugh that could cut through anything. "You look like someone unplugged you," she said one Wednesday as we wiped down the reception desk. "You sleeping at all?" "I sleep," I said. "I wake up, I go to work, I come home. It is not complicated." Not complicated is usually code for, "I'm not talking about this," she said, "which is fine. It is your life. Just do not forget you have one." On Sunday, she dragged me out of the house, to the farmer's market under the freeway, to the church basement book sale where hardcovers cost $1 and paperbacks 50 cents, to a little coffee shop that smelled like cinnamon and burnt beans where we sat by the window and watched people walk dogs in sweaters. At home, I moved around my routines like furniture I did not remember arranging. I still made coffee in the blue mug each morning. I still wiped crumbs from the table into my palm. I still checked the mailbox at 3 Pécheux. I did not look at the Colorado postcard for a long time. It lay on the counter where I had left it that day, the magnet back on the fridge with nothing under it. Every time I passed it, I saw the bridge out of the corner of my eye, but I did not pick it up. The stack of bus tickets lived in an old shoebox in the closet. Sometimes at night when the house felt too quiet, I opened the box and flipped through them. Each rectangle of paper had a date, a departure time, a destination proof that I had gone when he asked. There were no new ones. Then 6 months after the hospital called about the bill, the phone rang while I was peeling potatoes at the sink. The caller ID said Colorado, but the number was not the hospital's and not Ethan's. I felt something in my chest seize anyway. I dried my hand on a dish towel and picked up. "This is Grace," I said. "Miss Walker." A woman's voice brisk but not unkind. "My name is Sarah Coleman. I am with the Colorado Department of Human Services Child Welfare Division." For a moment I thought of the bill again, money, collections, some new kind of trouble. "Is this about a payment?" I asked. "No, ma'am," she said. "This is about your grandson." The knife in my other hand slid against the potato. A thin strip of skin dropped into the sink. "Leo," I said, "is he all right?" "He is physically fine," she said. "Safe. He is currently in temporary state care." The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the counter. "In care," I repeated. "What does that mean?" "It means he was removed from his parents' custody 72 hours ago," she said. "It is a short-term placement while we sort things out. As part of that process, we reach out to relatives for kinship care. Your son provided your name and number." My heart started to thud slow and heavy. "What happened?" I asked. She took a breath as if she had said this many times and still did not like saying it. "From what we understand, there have been significant stressors," she said. "Your daughter-in-law, Jenna, has been struggling with postpartum depression since Leo's birth. It has escalated over time. 3 days ago, she experienced what the attending physician described as a breakdown. She was admitted to the psychiatric unit at Mile High Medical Center. I pictured that hallway again. The door I had not been allowed to pass. Somewhere inside the same building, another door was now locked from the outside. And Ethan," I said. His name came out smaller than I meant. "Your son has been her primary support person," Sarah said. "He also lost his job a few months ago. There have been financial problems, tension in the home. A neighbor called the police when they heard shouting and the baby crying for a long period. When officers arrived, they determined that both parents were in crisis and not able to safely care for the child in that moment." I picked up the paring knife again, so I would have something in my hand. "Is he drinking?" I asked before I could stop myself. Daniel's father had been. The way stress runs in families is never as straight as a bloodline, but it still finds its way. There was no report of substance abuse, she said, just exhaustion and untreated mental health issues. "I met him yesterday at the hospital. He is overwhelmed. He wants Leo with family." Family. The word scratched at me. "What exactly are you asking me?" I said. "We are looking for a temporary caregiver," she said. "Someone Leo knows, someone we can place him with instead of keeping him in foster care while his parents stabilize. It may be a matter of weeks. It may be longer. If you are willing and able to take him, we can arrange for you to be approved as a kinship placement." I heard water still running in the sink and turned the tap off. The sudden quiet made her voice louder. "How old is he now?" I asked, though I could count. 18 months, she said. "He is in good health. A little clingy, which is to be expected. He has been asking for his dad." The knife slipped in my hand. I set it down carefully. "Does he ask for me?" I said. I did not know why I said it. The question surprised me as much as it must have surprised her. Sarah was silent for a beat. "He asks for familiar people," she said. "Right now, that is mostly his father. He is very young." "Right," I said. "We need to move quickly," she added. If you are interested, we can help with travel arrangements, but it has to be soon. Tomorrow would be best. Tomorrow. Bus rides clicked into my head like cards in a file. St. Louis to Denver, the long flat of Kansas, the way the windows shook when trucks roared past. Can I think about it? I said. Of course, she said, but I could hear the clock ticking in her voice. I will give you my direct number. Call me back within a few hours if you can. The longer he is in temporary care, the harder it is on him. After she hung up, I stayed in the same spot, phone still in my hand, staring at the half-peeled potato in the sink. The cold light from the small kitchen window fell across the counter. Dust floated through it, slow and aimless. I set the phone down next to the blue mug. The mug had a faint coffee ring inside from that morning. My thumb found the chip in the rim, again the familiar roughness. Who was that? Carol's voice came from the back door. She let herself in without knocking, like always shrugging off her jacket and hanging it on a chair. The smell of her cigarette followed her in thin and sharp under the smell of potatoes. I must have forgotten to lock the door. Colorado, I said. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. Something in my face must have given more way because she stopped halfway to the table. What happened? She said. They took Leo, I said. The words dropped between us heavy and solid. Social services. They took him out of the apartment. Jenna is in the hospital. Ethan lost his job. They want to know if I will take him. Carol sat down at the table like her knees had given out. Sit, she said, and pointed to the chair across from her. I sat. Start over, she said, slowly and with breathing. I told her what Sarah had said. Not all the details, just the bones. Breakdown. Financial problems, temporary care, 18 months. Tomorrow. When I finished, Carol leaned back and stared at the ceiling for a second. Well, she said, that is a mess. Yes, I said. You going? She asked. The question hung in the air. I do not know, I said. If I go, I am back in their world, in their problems, their shouting and bills and what they think of me. And if you do not go, she said. He stays with strangers, I said. My throat tightened. Somebody else tucks him in. Somebody else hears him cry and picks him up. We listened to the refrigerator hum. Carol tapped her fingers on the table. Let me ask you something, she said. When you were killing yourself with those 2 jobs so Ethan could go to college, did you do it because he was grateful? No, I said. Did you do it because he said thank you enough? No. Why did you do it then? She said. Because he was my son, I said. And Leo, she asked. He is my grandson, I said. There you go, she said. It is not the same, I said, stubborn. Ethan is not 15 anymore. He's a grown man who told me goodbye. Jenna thinks I'm a problem. They did not want me there for the good parts. Now they want me for the hard part. Carol nodded. You are not wrong. She leaned forward, planted her elbows on the table. So, here is the thing, she said. You going to take care of that baby for them or for you? For him, I said. Then go, she said, and do it for him. But different this time. You are not their maid. You are not their wallet. You are his grandmother. That is it. I looked at the blue mug between us the way the morning light turned its chipped edge bright. I am scared, I said. Of what? She asked. That they will hurt you again? Yes, I said. She nodded. They might, she said, or they might not. Either way, you are tougher now. It sounded like something people said in movies when they did not know what else to say. The difference was that Carol had seen me drag myself into work with swollen feet and red eyes. She had watched me learn how to let my phone ring without answering. She knew the shape of my tougher. After she left, I washed my hands, picked up the phone, and dialed Sarah's number. I will come, I said when she answered. Tell me what I have to do. We arranged the basics. There would be forms to sign when I got there. A background check, a home study later if it became longer term. For now, all I had to do was arrive. I hung up and went to the closet. The shoebox of tickets was where I had left it. I carried it to the table and sat down. Inside were years of thin perforated paper, St. Louis to Denver, Denver to St. Louis. Sometimes I had not even looked out the window. I had just ridden the miles on muscle memory. I took one of the old tickets out and smoothed it flat. The ink had faded, but I could still read the date of the wedding weekend. I put it aside. Then I closed the lid on the box and pushed it back into the closet. At the bus station, the woman behind the glass recognized me. Or maybe she just recognized the look of someone buying a long ride alone. Where to? She asked. Denver, I said. Round trip, she said. I thought of my house, my job, my little kitchen with the blue mug. I thought of an 18-month-old boy in a temporary room with temporary toys. Just one ticket for now, I said. We will see about the rest later. The bus smelled the same. Plastic fuel, old upholstery. I found a seat near the window and settled in my bag at my feet. In the side pocket tucked into the fabric was a photograph of Ethan at 10 lying on his stomach on the living room floor, drawing a bridge in thick pencil lines. When we crossed into Colorado, the land slowly rose around us, flat fields giving way to distant shapes of mountains. Somewhere out there was the life Ethan had built on top of the one I had given him. The bus pulled into Denver in the late morning. The air was thinner and sharper than in St. Louis. I felt it in my chest in the way my breath caught on the staircase down from the platform. Sarah met me at the station just like she said she would. She was younger than I had imagined, maybe late 30s, with a dark ponytail and a worn leather bag slung across her body. She held a clipboard in one hand. "Mitz Walker," she said. "Yes," I said. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know this is a lot." She led me to her car, a state vehicle with crumbs on the back seat and a car seat already buckled in. "We will go to the hospital first," she said as she pulled into traffic. "Your son is there with Jenna, then we will pick up Leo." The hospital looked the same as it had in February. Same wide glass doors, same revolving carousel of people going in and out. Inside, the smell hit me like a memory. Antiseptic, vending machine coffee, the faint sweetness of baby lotion from someone else's arms. Sarah guided me to a waiting room near the psychiatric wing. Ethan sat in a chair in the corner, elbows on his knees, his hands hanging between them. His hair was longer and messier than I remembered. There was stubble on his jaw. He wore the same hoodie he had in college, the one with the university logo peeling. When he saw me, he stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "Mom," he said. It sounded different this time. No edge, just raw. He crossed the room in 3 steps and wrapped his arms around me. He had hugged me at the bus station before at the wedding in the hospital lobby, but this was not that kind of hug. This one had weight. And had. For a second, I stood stiff. Then my arms came up and circled his back. He was shaking. "I am sorry," he said into my shoulder. His voice broke on the second word. "I am so sorry." My hand ran between his shoulder blades on instinct the way I had when he was 15, and his father was lying cold in a hospital bed down the hall. I did not say it is all right. I did not say it is okay. Those words were too big and too easy. I just held him while he cried. When he pulled back, his eyes were red and there was a patch of wet on the front of my shirt. "I was angry when you said you do not have family here," he said. "I was furious. I thought you were making some point trying to hurt us. But then the bottom fell out and there was nothing under us, and I realized I had kicked away the only solid thing we had ever had." "You had each other," I said. He shook his head. "We were both drowning." He wiped his face on his sleeve, embarrassed. "How is she?" I asked. He glanced toward the closed door at the end of the hall. "Some days she talks," he said. "Some days she just stares at the wall. They say the meds will help if she stays on them. She's tired. She feels like she failed. I do not know how to convince her she did not." He sank back into the chair, exhaustion in every line. "I lost my job 3 months ago," he said. "I did not tell you. I did not tell anyone. We were behind on rent. Jenna's mom tried to help, but it came with a lot of strings. The day they took Leo, I had not slept in 2 nights. I was yelling. I scared him." His voice cracked. "I scared my own kid. I sat down next to him. 'Leo is safe,' I said. 'We are going to get him.'" He nodded, swallowing. Sarah cleared her throat gently. "We should head over," she said. "Visiting hours are limited at the home." We drove to a low building on a side street, cheerful on the outside, with bright murals and flowers in a narrow strip of dirt. Inside, the walls were painted with trees and animals. It smelled like graham crackers and disinfectant. In the playroom, several children were scattered across the floor, each in their own little island of toys. He was in the corner near a low shelf of plastic trucks. Leo had more hair now. It stuck up in the back in soft curls. He wore a sweatshirt with a dinosaur on it and socks that did not match. He pushed a truck back and forth on the carpet, making a sound under his breath that might have been an engine. "Leo," Sarah said quietly, "your grandma's here." He looked up. For a second, his eyes went past me, searching. Then they landed on Ethan. "Dada," he said, and scrambled to his feet. Ethan knelt and opened his arms. Leo collided with him, hands clutching at his hoodie. "I am here, buddy," Ethan said, voice thick. "I am right here." After a minute, Leo peeked over his father's shoulder at me. He frowned, studying my face with the solemn focus of someone not yet able to fake interest. I knelt to my knees, complaining. "Hi," I said. "We met once, in a taxi. You were very sleepy." He stared another second. Then cautiously, he let go of Ethan with one hand and reached it out toward me. His fingers were warm and small against my own. He stepped closer, half hiding behind his father's shoulder, half leaning out. I put my other hand over his and squeezed gently. Hi, I said again. He did not say my name. He did not have one for me yet. But he stayed there, his hand in mine, and I felt something in my chest loosen. Later in Sarah's small office, I signed forms. Letters on paper turned into permission. Kinship caregiver, temporary placement, rights and responsibilities. Ethan sat in the corner again, Leo on his lap, thumb in his mouth now, eyes drooping. Each time a page slid toward me, I caught a glimpse of my hands. The skin was thin and marked the veins more visible than I remembered. The pen dug a little too deep where my grip had tightened. When it was over, Sarah handed me a folder. There are some basics in here, she said. Medical info, contact numbers, a preliminary schedule for supervised visits with his parents. I took it. You are not alone in this, she added. We will check in. There is support if you need it. I nodded. On the way out, Leo was quiet in my arms, his head on my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. His weight felt different from the first time, more solid. Not a 5-minute favor, a living, shifting presence. Outside in the small parking lot, Ethan stopped beside Sarah's car. Where are you staying? He asked me. I have not decided yet, I said. We just got here. You can stay at our place, he said quickly. I mean, if you want. The couch is not great, but Leo knows it. I will sleep on the floor or something when I am not at the hospital. I thought of the apartment from the photos, the white walls, the view from the balcony, the fight that had been loud enough to bring the police. Is it clean? I asked. He flushed. Not really. We will see, I said. We drove in silence. The apartment building was not as shiny as the pictures had made it seem. The paint was peeling near the entrance. Someone had left a broken laundry basket beside the stairs. Inside, the air smelled like old cooking and dust. Ethan's door had a dent near the bottom where something had hit it hard. The living room was cluttered. Toys on the floor, a blanket half off the couch, a stack of unopened mail on the coffee table, a plant in the corner that had given up a while ago. Leo squirmed to be put down and toddled over to a pile of blocks, picking one up in each hand. I looked around slowly. You have a crib? I asked. In the bedroom, Ethan said, we can move it, whatever you want. I set the folder on the table next to the mail and turned to him. I will take Leo, I said. I will help. I will be his grandmother. Relief flooded his face. Thank you, he said. I do not deserve it. We are not talking about what you deserve, I said. We are talking about what he needs. He nodded. But listen to me carefully, I added. He straightened like a boy bracing for a lecture. I am not here as your built-in babysitter, I said. I am not your credit line. I am not the person you call only when something explodes. If I stay here, if I help you, we do it in a way that does not grind me into the floor. He swallowed. Okay. You will talk to your caseworker, I said. You will show up to your appointments. You will pay what you can when you can for bills that are yours. You will not hand anyone my number for that without asking me. His eyes flicked to my face and then away. And when Jenna comes home, I said, you will not let her treat me like a ghost in my own grandson's life. He opened his mouth, then shut it, then tried again. She was scared, he said. Of losing me. Of not being enough. Of a lot of things. It does not excuse anything, but she is not a monster. I know, I said. He looked at Leo, who had lined 3 blocks up and was knocking them over one by one. I have been a coward, he said. I thought if I kept the two of you separate, my life would be easier. All I did was make both of you lonelier. I did not argue. He was old enough to name his own faults. Leo waddled over with a block in his hand and held it up to me. For you, he said, or something close to it. I took it. Thank you, I said. As I straightened up, the front door opened. Jenna stood in the doorway, a paper bag from the hospital pharmacy cradled in one arm, a plastic bracelet still around her wrist. For a moment, no one spoke. Her hair was pulled back in a loose knot. There were dark circles under her eyes. She looked like someone had drained all the color from her and then tried to paint it back in too fast. Her gaze went first to Leo. He stared back, then broke into a wide smile. Hi, he said, both hands reaching up. Her face crumpled. She crossed the room in a few steps and sank to her knees, arms around him, the paper bag forgotten on the carpet. I missed you, she whispered into his hair. I missed you so much. I watched them, the two of them folded together like they were trying to occupy the same space. Then Jenna looked up and saw me. Her expression shifted, surprise, guilt, something like fear. Grace, she said. My name in her mouth sounded unfamiliar. She had never used it much. I stood there in a room that smelled like stale air and baby shampoo with a block in my hand and my grandson between us, and met her eyes. Jenna's eyes stayed on mine longer than I expected. She looked smaller than I remembered, like someone had taken her outline and thinned it. The paper bag lay on its side near the door, a white pill bottle rolling gently against the carpet each time Leo shifted. "I did not know you were here," she said. "We just got back," I answered, "from the home." Her gaze dropped to Leo. He clung to her shirt, fingers bunched in the fabric cheek pressed against her chest. His dinosaur sock was twisted halfway around his foot. "Are you—" she swallowed. "Are you taking him?" The room seemed to hold its breath. "I am looking after him," I said, "for now." Something flickered across her face. Relief. Then something else sharper. "You came," she said, "after everything." "You signed my name on a hospital bill," I said before I could think to soften it. Her shoulders hunched. "I know," she said. "That was wrong." She did not try to explain it, not yet. She stood up slowly, shifting Leo on her hip. He looked between us, his eyes moving in a small triangle, like he was trying to read a map with no legend. "Can you give us a minute?" Ethan asked me quietly. I thought about saying no, about insisting I stay anchored in the middle of the room. Instead, I nodded. "I will put my things in the bedroom," I said. The bedroom was dim, curtains half closed. The crib sat against one wall, immobile, of cardboard stars tangled above it. There was a dent in the pillow on the bed on Jenna's side. The smell of her shampoo hung in the air, mixed with the faint sour of sleep. I set my bag down on the floor by the closet and sat on the edge of the bed. Through the thin wall, I could hear their voices. "I cannot believe you called her," Jenna said. "I did not have a choice," Ethan said. "We needed help. You did not want her here before she said. You said it would just complicate things." "I was wrong," he said, "about a lot." Leo made a small noise of protest at the tension. "I am trying," Jenna said, and her voice broke on the word trying. "I went to that place. I took their pills. I said I would follow their plan. I am doing everything they tell me, and I still feel like I am walking on glass." There was a quiet beat. "I was so afraid she would take you," Jenna said, voice low. "That she would walk in and you would just go back to being her son and I would be the extra." "That is not how it works," he said. "I am not 12. It is how it felt," she said. I stood up because if I stayed sitting, I would start hearing things that were not there. When I walked back into the living room, Jenna was on the couch, Leo in her lap, Ethan in the chair across from them. The space between the two of them felt crowded, even though there was air there. They both looked at me. "Do you want me to go?" I asked. "No," Jenna said before Ethan could answer. She adjusted Leo so he sat facing me, one hand still on his knee. "I owe you an apology," she said. "People say those words in different ways. I have heard all versions. The easy ones that slide out with no weight. The rehearsed ones that sound like a script. Hers came out rough, scraped on the way. I judged you," she said, "before I met you. When I saw pictures of you and Ethan, the way he talked about you, I thought there was not going to be enough space for me. In his life. In Leo's." She looked down at her hands, then back up. "My mom is not—" She stopped, searching for a word that did not cut too deep. "Warm. She's critical. She has this way of making everything about what I did wrong." Her fingers twisted the hem of the blanket under Leo. "I was so scared you would be like her. Or that you would be the opposite and he would love you so much more than he loved me. So I did what I do when I am scared." "You pushed," I said. She nodded. Hard. Her mouth tightened. "And then I cracked. And they took my baby because I had been so busy trying to guard him from you that I did not see what I was doing to him myself." Her cheek was wet. She had not noticed the tears. "I am sorry," she said again. "I am sorry I cut you out. I am sorry I did not answer your messages. I am sorry I let them call you for a bill, but not for a birth. You did not deserve that." The room was quiet except for the soft thump of Leo's foot tapping against the couch. Ethan sat with his elbows on his knees, watching both of us like someone watching two sides of an argument he had created and did not know how to fix. "I will help with Leo," I said, "because he needs all the people who love him to show up." I let that sit before I added the rest. "But I am not here to fill a hole you made by pushing me out," I said. "If I stay, it will be on terms we all agree on, not just when everything falls apart." "I want that," Jenna said. "I do not know how to do it yet, but I want it." "We will figure it out," Ethan said. His eyes flicked between us, hopeful and scared at the same time. "I'm not going anywhere tonight," I said. "We can start there. Months find their own rhythm if you let them." The first weeks were uneven. Leo cried in the night sometimes for his father, sometimes for nothing we could see. Jenna came home from the hospital with a list of appointments and a bag full of pill bottles. Some mornings she got up before me and made toast. Some mornings she did not leave the bed until noon. Ethan went to meetings at the unemployment office, then interviews, then second interviews. He came home tired in a new way, one eye on his phone, fingers restless. I moved into the second bedroom, the one that had held boxes and an unused treadmill. We carried the treadmill out together and set up a small cot and a dresser. Leo's crib stayed in his parents' room, but he spent as many naps on my chest as he did under the mobile. I learned the bus routes in Denver. I took Leo to the park when the weather allowed, his small hand wrapped around my finger, his other hand clutching a plastic truck. He liked to stand on the footbridge over the little creek and drop leaves in, watching them float under us. Bridge, I taught him. This is a bridge. Bidge, he said, pleased with himself. Sometimes when Jenna felt strong enough, she came with us. She walked slow, like someone learning her own weight again. At home, there were still sharp words some nights, frustration at bills, at medical forms, at each other. More than once I picked up Leo and took him into the bedroom, when voices rose humming under my breath until the walls stopped shaking. Other nights, the three of us sat at the small dining table, Leo in his high chair, peas scattered on the tray, spaghetti sauce on his cheeks. Jenna told stories about architecture school. Ethan told stories about bridge inspections. I told stories about the time he tried to build a fort out of my couch cushions and knocked over a lamp. She's making that one up, he told Leo, and Leo giggled, not understanding the words, just the cadence. I have witnesses, I said. One afternoon, a thick envelope arrived from the Department of Human Services. Inside was paperwork about my official status as a kinship caregiver. There would be a home visit, a background check. The woman who came to the apartment wore sensible shoes and had a binder full of forms. She walked through the rooms with a practiced eye. Safe sleep environment, she said when she saw the crib. Baby gates, outlets covered. Good. She made notes, asked questions. Do you feel supported in this arrangement, Ms. Walker? She asked at the end, pen poised. I know who I am here, I said. I am his grandmother. She wrote something down and closed the folder. In late summer, Ethan found steady work at a smaller engineering firm. It did not pay as much as his old job, but it was enough to stop the threats from the landlord. He came home with a different kind of tired in his shoulders, one that came from doing something he knew how to do. Jenna kept going to therapy. Sometimes she came back quiet. Sometimes she came back with new questions. Did you ever resent Ethan when he was little? She asked me once while we washed dishes. Sometimes I said, when he left his socks on the floor, when I was on my feet all day and he complained about having to take out the trash. I mean for existing, she said. I thought about Daniel's empty side of the bed, about the garage I had given up, the life that had narrowed down to paychecks and school meetings. Sometimes I said, on the worst nights. She nodded like she had expected me to lie and was relieved I had not. And then what she said. Then I got up in the morning and made breakfast, I said. Nothing fancy. Eggs. Toast. It is what I could do. It was not advice. Just an answer. As the year turned, the air thinned again. Leaves along the streets in Denver shifted from green to gold. I started to miss the smell of the river in St. Louis, the particular creak of my own floorboards. One evening, after Leo had fallen asleep with his hand against my neck, Ethan and I sat in the living room with the television on low, a game played that neither of us was watching. He cleared his throat. Do you remember what you told the hospital? He asked. They called me about the bill, I said. People in suits always find me. They told me you said you do not have family in Denver, he said. His eyes stayed on the dark screen. I did, I said. It felt like you hit me in the chest, he said. I could not breathe. All I could think was, how could you say that? He leaned back, hands behind his head, elbows pointing out like wings. Then everything started falling apart, he said. Work, Jenna, the house, me. And I kept hearing that sentence in my head over and over. I kept thinking about what you must have felt to say it. The only light came from the lamp in the corner. It made a halo on the wall. I always thought you would just be there, he said. No matter how much I ignored you. No matter how far I pushed you back. Like a building code that is just part of the structure. You do not see it, but you rely on it. He laughed once unhappy. It never occurred to me that you might decide I was not your family anymore, he said. I never decided that, I said. I decided I would not pay a bill that came with a locked door and no chair for me in the room. I know that now, he said. It is just that hearing you say those words out loud made something shift in my head. All of a sudden I saw every time I had taken you for granted like someone had turned the lights on. He looked at me then. It was the worst thing you could have said to me, he said, and exactly what I needed to hear. I thought of that day in my kitchen, my hand on the blue mug, my voice steady on the phone with the billing clerk. I did not plan it, I said. It just came out. Maybe those are the ones that matter, he said. We sat there a while listening to the tick of the clock and the soft huff of Leo's breath through the monitor. A year and a half later, Leo started preschool. He wore a backpack too big for his shoulders and sneakers with little lights in the heels that blinked when he walked. The classroom smelled like glue and fruit snacks. Construction paper in primary colors covered the walls. On Family Day, the teacher announced they would be performing a song about building. The children stood in a crooked line, some picking their noses, some staring at the ceiling. Leo stood in the middle, his hair smooth for once, his dinosaur shirt tucked in. The music started. The words were simple. Something about putting pieces together, about making something strong that could carry weight. The hand motions were big and uncoordinated. When they finished, the parents clapped some louder than others. Phones flashed. Leo scanned the small crowd. His eyes landed on us. I stood between Ethan and Jenna in the cramped space at the back of the room. They had both taken the day off work. Jenna had a small stain of finger paint on her wrist where Leo had grabbed her that morning. He walked past them, past two other sets of arms, straight to me. "Grandma," he said, "did you see my bridge?" His eyes were bright, his cheeks flushed. "I did," I said. "It was the best one." He laughed and corrected me. "It was a song, not a bridge." "Felt like one from here," I said. He threw his arms around my waist. I bent down and hugged him, my chin resting on the top of his head for a second. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan slip an arm around Jenna's shoulders. She leaned into him, her body relaxed, no stiffness in the contact. On the way out, Leo insisted on showing us the block corner. He dragged us to a low table where a wooden bridge sat between two stacks of books. The arch wobbled but held. "I made this," he said, touching it with reverence. "Of course you did," Ethan said. "Looks like it could carry a lot," I said. Leo nodded, satisfied. Not long after I went back to St. Louis for a stretch. Not because I was angry. Not because I was running away. Because there were things there that were still mine. My house felt smaller after Denver, but it was a good small. My own bed, my own kitchen, the sound of freight trains in the distance at night. I unpacked slowly. A few of Leo's drawings came out of the suitcase wobbly lines that were supposed to be houses and suns. I put them on the refrigerator with magnets. In the cupboard, the blue mug waited. I took it down and washed it even though it was clean. The water ran hot over my hands. I filled the mug with coffee and carried it to the table. The Colorado Bridge postcard was still there where I had left it months before, tucked under a bowl. The edges were a little more curled. I picked it up. Next to it was a new postcard held in place by the same tomato magnet. This one had arrived the week before I came back forwarded from Denver. On the front was a photograph of a smaller bridge. Not a big showy city landmark. A pedestrian bridge over a creek in a neighborhood park. The kind of bridge people cross without thinking, pushing strollers or walking dogs. On the back, in Ethan's handwriting, there was a note. "We finished this one last month. Thought you should see the first bridge I worked on after climbing out of the mess I made. Love. E." I stood there a moment, both postcards in one hand, the old and the new. Then I put them side by side on the refrigerator door. Later that afternoon, my laptop chimed. The video call connected slowly. The picture stuttered, then cleared. Leo's face filled the screen first, upside down, his hair hanging. "Grandma, look," he shouted. "I can be a bat." The image swung and righted itself. Jenna appeared behind him, laughing, her hair pulled back. Eyes clearer than I had ever seen them. Ethan leaned in from the other side, his hand on Leo's shoulder. "Hi, Mom," he said. "Hi," I said. Behind them on the wall, I recognized a framed photo. The four of us in the park in Denver. Leo on my lap, Ethan and Jenna on either side. Someone at the clinic had taken it on my last day there when we had stopped at the playground. We had printed a copy before I left. The one on their wall was centered straight, catching the light. "I lost a tooth," Leo announced, baring his gums. "Already," I said. "You are going to need a whole new set soon." When the call ended, I sat at my kitchen table with my blue mug between my hands and looked at the fridge. 2 bridges, a handful of drawings, a photo that did not cut anyone out. Outside, a train horn sounded in the distance. The light coming through the window had that late afternoon softness that makes everything look a little kinder. I took a sip of coffee. It was just right. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.